Are we losing our country? Because right now, if you look at the facts, I would say, in my humble political opinion, that we most definitely are. And it's even more telling in these two things. The first thing, we were always told and continue to be told that Australia values freedom, freedom of speech. We're a modern country. We have freedom to live your life without excess government interference. Okay. The second thing is a fair go. That's a pretty big part of Australia. It's the belief that people should be judged on their merit instead of their class, instead of their wealth, instead of their family connections. Okay, it's a meritocracy. Okay, it's a fair go for all. But is that what we're exhibiting right now? Or let's correct that. Is that what the government is exhibiting right now? So, guys, we got a pretty big episode in front of us. Welcome back to the Show. Like always, leave your thoughts in the comment section down below. Also, check out our Kanga match, join the waitlist, and enjoy the rant. So, let's get into it. All right, now just going back to the first message here, that I think that we were always told, or at least, it was implied, that Australia values freedom and furthermore freedom of speech. And in my opinion, look, I would argue that right now, that's not the case due to these reasons. The first one, we don't have a Bill of Rights in Australia. Okay, and that's pretty telling. Instead, regarding free speech protection, I suppose, we have something that the High Court recognizes as implied freedom of political expression. Okay, that's not the absolute right to free speech. So I mean, guys, in this, defense to my argument, I could stop right there. I don't need to elaborate. I could stop the argument right there as to why Australia doesn't exhibit free speech. We don't have an absolute right to it, therefore I don't think we're free. Argument over. However, if we wanted to expand on this, we have other points to address. We gotta look into the hate speech laws. These hate speech laws are so vague that they can police political expression, right? We've gone into this before in the past about hate speech. I don't feel like I need to go over the whole gist of it again because at the baseline, these hate speech laws are so vague that they can police political expression. All right, so with that logic, it's pretty easy to determine what political parties in reality prioritize freedom of speech. Just look at what parties have pushed the hate speech laws. And with this argument that Australia does not live in freedom, I can keep going, guys. I can keep, citing examples here. We can talk about the under 16 social media ban. Okay, we can talk about the increase in fines regarding that ban for the companies. We can talk about the ASIO amendment bill. We can talk about, to an extent, intimidation. We can talk about all of that stuff. But I feel like I made a point here. And in my opinion, the value that we were told that Australia exhibits freedom and is, a free country of freedom of speech, I think that's a lie. We don't. We don't live in freedom like America. And as soon as you recognize that, then you can actually wake up to the reality of what's happening around us. And if you've watched my channel for a while now, that's one of the most important topics to me, being free speech. Because guys, if we don't have to what I think should be, the basic right to free speech, then debate halts. Conversations lessen. And when those two things happen, that's when the bad things occur. That's when people resort to violence. And that's when control increases. God, I can really expand on that for so long. Let me know if you want a more in-depth video on that. But let's go into the second topic that we said at the beginning, that Australia supposedly exhibits. And that's a fair go, which we all, probably know. It's a big thing in our culture. It's, sort of like mateship. It's a fair go. That's what Australia supposedly is. However, I don't think we're exhibiting that right now. And part of the reason is due to this recent federal budget. And it's like a lot of people say, it's taxing aspiration. And just ask the question, like, does the recent property and tax changes really imply that everyone, regardless of your family connections, regardless of your wealth at the current moment, do these changes really imply that everyone has a fair go at creating wealth? I don't think it does. So, I mean, that right there, that kind of tells you something at least. I just chose two main beliefs that Australia supposedly has, amongst many others, but those two ones, are pretty big ones. And in my opinion, in a pretty simple overview, just prove that Australia is not exhibiting them at the moment. So then that furthers the question of, what is Australia representing if it's not our own values? Let me know your guys' thoughts on that. Leave a comment down below. If our main values aren't being exhibited by our country, then what the hell are we representing? Let me know your perspectives. And just changing topics here, something that, because this is our weekly rant stuff that I've noticed over the past week, and this is what I've noticed as well. Something that I'm getting concerned about is that the youth in our countries, my generation, Gen Z, I suppose, doesn't really talk about politics in depth or debate or really has any conversations about it. Partly, I think that's, to do with the schooling system, just in my humble political opinion. Most people don't know who the opposition leader is and things like that, and basic things aren't taught. But I think that's a huge problem because that's our up and coming voter base. And if we don't have, potentially by design, a well informed voter base, then that's even more control. So I think that we need to get Gen Z more involved in politics, or at least talking about politics or having some basic knowledge about it. And I always think that when we talk about politics, a little bit of a topic change here, but just looking at the bigger picture of things. Whenever we talk about these issues and talk about politics just in general, I feel like we gotta just distinguish between what we're talking about. Okay, are we talking about domestic and international politics? Or are we talking about the bigger picture here? Because those two things are extremely different. All right? An example of the bigger picture is the UN. And I'm not putting my opinion into this just yet, guys, because I want to dedicate a full episode to this. Very interesting. Let me know if you want me to do a full episode in the comments down below. But I just want to read to you guys just some sentences that I've pulled from their agenda, that 2030 plan. Just some sentences, okay? I'm not putting my opinion into it. You guys come up with your own opinions based on what they have said in this little agenda. All right, guys, what do we have here? First line, transforming our worlds. Okay. All right, scrolling down a bit. We envisage a world free of poverty, hunger, disease, and want. And want? Okay, where all life can thrive. We envisage a world free of fear and violence, a world with universal literacy, a world with equitable and universal access to quality education at all levels, to healthcare and social protection. Okay. And it continues to go on. Also, another sentence is, we envisage a world of universal respect for human rights and human dignity, the rule of law, justice, equality, and non-discrimination. All right. We envisage a world in which every country enjoys sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth and decent work for all. Okay, well, I know what I'm thinking. And I just wanted to point out also that it's pretty telling that a lot of celebrities advocate for the UN or UNICEF. Okay, just picking up on that. Also, I think it's also pretty telling that Australia is a founding member of the United Nations, which was established in 1945. That's all extremely interesting. But guys, just going back to the main topic of this sort of video, are we losing our country? Are we losing Australia? Because if we're not representing what our main values are, that I would say a lot of us were taught that Australia exhibits, then what the hell are we representing? Let me know your thoughts on all of that. Let me know if you want a more in-depth episode on the UN and this 2030 agenda plan, because it's extremely interesting what's happening there. And let me know your thoughts overall on Gen Z needing to be more involved in politics and what Australia represents right now. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please leave a comment down below. I'd love to read through them, and I hope to see you all in my next one.